PR Connections Radio presents. This episode of Thinking into Results is brought to you by Classy Communications PR and Advertising. Classy Communications provides public relations and marketing solutions for businesses, professionals, and nonprofit organizations. They can deliver the true meaning of your business with press releases, social media marketing, web development, email marketing, book publishing, and much more. Wherever your potential clients are, they can help you connect with them. Visit classycommunications.net to learn more about their suite of services that can help your business stand out from the rest. Classy Communications is your solution for business success.
I guess you can be very successful without one, and probably some people do. But I would not have accomplished anywhere near what I have accomplished without a mentor. I have had a number of mentors, and my whole life has changed dramatically. I went from going nowhere to having a business that operates all over the world. If you want to win in a big way, you want to get a mentor. It's almost like getting a direct pipeline from their mind to your mind, where you're gaining all their wisdom, all their experience, and all the studying that they've done over a number of years. And like that, you get it all in a short period of time. Are mentors important? Well, I'm going to tell you, mentors literally changed the course of my life. Let's take a look at what thinking into results is and what it could do for you, how it came about. You see, my life had changed dramatically. I went from earning nothing to earning over $1 million a year. And I was sitting one day and I was thinking, how did all this happen? Do you know, I was reading Think and Grow Rich. I was studying Earl Nightingale's material. But a lot of people have read those books and studied Earl's material. And they weren't accomplishing what I was accomplishing. So I had to ask myself, what am I doing so different? You see, I had been raised to believe if you're going to earn a lot of money, you've got to be really smart. I was earning over $1 million a year, and I didn't think I was that bright. I was also raised to believe if you don't go to school, you can't win. Well, I hadn't gone to school. I went to high school for about 2 months. I didn't have a good job. I owned the entire company. If you want to be happy, healthy, and prosperous, it's all here. Thinking into results is going to show you how to get it. If what I've said really triggered something in your mind and you're thinking maybe, contact the certified PGI consultant, hit the button, leave the information, do yourself a favor, sit down and talk to them about what this program can do for you. This very well could be the decision that will change the rest of your life.
Thank you, Bob. I'm Sid Maestre. I'm a certified consultant with Thinking in the Results. This program is Think and Grow Rich. Is the book that Bob was reading every day for 60 years. And today we have a program that's sponsored by S&J Mentoring. And Bob was just talking about the value of having a mentor. That's one of the things that we do. So today, I'm going to turn it over to my partner, John Gage, and introduce the power of the Mastermind.
Thank you, Sid. Well, you know, today's title is Form a Mastermind. You can't think of everything. And, you know, it's true when you start looking into people that have been successful in our past, you know, and there's a lot of famous people that are successful, and whether they've done it by accident or with intention, they've done a mastermind group to expand their knowledge and solve problems and maybe even create something new. You know, there's several from history. You know, Henry Ford's one of them. I know that you have a couple of examples, and I think we'll share some examples of really good masterminds. And I know you have one that they intentionally formed the mastermind, and one that they didn't. If you would like to kind of share those, Sid, I would really appreciate it. I think you wanted to start off with Andrew Carnegie.
Thank you, John. Andrew Carnegie, at the turn of the century, last century, 1900, he was the wealthiest man in the country, and he had a steel company, and he had brought together all the different companies that you need, from mining the ore, owning his railroad to transport the ore, and to the finished product. They have salespeople selling it. And he had a young man, and it's Napoleon Hill here. Napoleon Hill wrote this book, and he was to interview Andrew Carnegie, and they ended up spending a couple of days together, Andrew was sharing his philosophy with Napoleon Hill for success, and he put a challenge on the table, whether that he would like Napoleon Hill to spend 20 years interviewing 500 successful people that Andrew Carnegie would write letters to introduce him. And Napoleon Hill would have to support himself. And in Napoleon Hill's voice, I've got a CD of him telling the story, that he said yes, he would do it in 29 seconds. He knew that because Andrew Carnegie had his watch below the desk, skipping 1 minute. And when he said,
without telling him, right? He didn't tell him that he was going to give him a minute.
He didn't know it was a minute. Only afterwards he said, "Oh, that's good, 29 seconds, I guess."
That kind of freaked me out a little bit, honestly. You were timing that? Think about that for a second. That had to have a little bit of an effect on Napoleon Hill. So it continue. I just wanted to add that.
Oh, that's good, John. The Andrew Carnegie, I would say, had the first and most successful mastermind. You might not have used that word, but he put together about 52 companies that they were the best in that industry, put them in a trust, and had 53 people with their companies all working together. And someone asked Andrew Carnegie, "Well, what do you do?" He said, "Well, my job is to keep those guys working together in harmony." And so I think that was the first mastermind here in the United States.
Or at least the first one we're aware of that's documented.
Very good, John. I'm going to throw the ball back to you because you've got someone that you're very passionate about, and then I can share.
I do, yes. Because one of the things that successful people do, whether they realize they do it intentionally, and I believe Carnegie actually realized what he was doing, because he made it very clear to Napoleon Hill that this was intentional. So he got all these minds together, and they all had to be of like mind. They had a coordinated effort. They all had harmony. He had to keep them all, from killing each other. And it has to be 2 or more people. So 53, I think, qualifies there. There has to be a definite purpose to it. And these are all things that are required for Mastermind. And he had a definite purpose about, bringing the steel workers together. And so all of these key factors fit there. But so this is a businessman that intentionally does this. I'm going to talk about musicians today because one of my favorite artists passed last week, and I was just telling Sid at the beginning of this, I'll be 60 this year, and I've been listening to Ozzy Osbourne's music since I was 5 years old, because I had cousins that did it, so I was exposed to it. And so he's been a part of my life. There's always been, Ozzy's coming out with a new song when I was in high school. Ozzy's coming out with this. The last few years, he came out with new albums. Just a couple of years ago, even with Parkinson's disease and hurting as bad as he did, he still put out a new album in 2022. So he's always put out new music. And the one thing that musicians do, and a lot of times I don't believe musicians will understand that they're having a mastermind when they get together and write music. And I heard Tony Iommi talking about a Paranoid when they wrote that. They wrote all these songs, they wrote War Pigs, because this is the one with War Pigs and stuff on it. And he said they needed one more song to fill it, and they only had like 30 minutes to get it done. So everybody took a break to go do their thing. And when they came back, Tony Iommi had the Paranoid riff, and then they wrote Paranoid in like 5 minutes. And he had the original idea, then everybody else is like, oh, well, because they all had their own jobs. You have the drummer, you have the bass player, you had Ozzy who's saying. So the bass player's like, oh, this is going to go good with them. And of course, then you've got the drummer, Bill. He's all putting his drums to it, and Ozzy's writing the words that he's hearing as he's doing this. And that's how Mastermind works. They're all like-minded people working together in harmony. Sometimes it's not necessarily harmony, but they still work together. Because I believe you were telling me yesterday that the Beatles, sat down 200 times to write songs to get one song written. This is mastermind groups coming together, and this is what it takes to be successful, because you can't think of everything. Think about the Beatles. What happened to the Beatles when they broke up? Do you know when I was in high school in the 80s, do you know who had the most number one hits after the Beatles broke up?
The Stones?
No. Of the Beatles, when they started going out as solo artists, you know who had the most number one hits between 1970 and 1983? Ringo Starr.
No, you got me there.
Ringo Starr. Everybody thought it was Paul McCartney. No, it was Ringo Starr. He had 5 by 1983 when I graduated high school. So it was the magic of the mastermind, because you can't think of everything. So these guys came together. They had a coordination of knowledge and effort. That's one of the keys. These guys are getting together. They all have their jobs, all individual jobs, to write a song. But you got one that can play the drums, you got one that plays the bass, one that plays the guitar riff, and one that plays the words. And you have at least 2 people. So everybody's working together to get this song out. This is how we get great music. It doesn't happen on its own. There's a lot of effort that goes into this. There's a lot of effort that goes into obtaining your goals. This is the same effort. These guys have a dream just like you guys do. Just like Sid does, just like I do. They have their own dreams, and this is what it takes to accomplish those. And the mastermind is one of the best ways to do it, because it's not the only mind together. If you bring 2 minds together, they say you have the equivalent of 3 at that point. You ever notice when you're together with a group of friends that, you're wanting to accomplish, putting a car together, or, anything, beating a video game. Sometimes that is something that takes a multitude of effort. Or maybe you want to put together a marketing package for your sales team. I know you've done that before, Sid. Were you able to do that all by yourself?
Nope. I've never accomplished anything really big by myself.
Neither have I.
But I'd like to, if I can take a couple moments on the
Absolutely.
Because I saw a video documentary, 2 hours back in the 90s, And the only thing I remember about it was they had 200 scheduled sit-downs in the studio for the period of years with the intention of coming up with a song. And they always did. How many of them were winners or losers, I don't know. But the reason I'm really excited about this, because I saw an interview with Paul a couple days ago, and he gave the example.
Okay.
They were told they didn't have to come back to the studio for, let's say it was a week, when normally they would only have 3 or 4 days. So he said, oh, we were excited. We had a week off. And when they come in, he had some words. I don't know what song they were working on, but it had a little bit on this song, some words. And George started doing some plunking on his guitar. And Ringo's sitting there with his drums, and he's listening to them, and he's bringing his, I must say his genius, each one of them, their talent is being triggered by what they're hearing from the others. And it comes together, and it's, I must say it's like magic.
It is. It is like magic because they're manifesting something that's never happened. These songs didn't exist until they came into their minds.
This reminds me, before you get into the famous, our famous people like Henry Ford, I'm on a lot of webinars and I take notes.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a third of the notes are something that was being said, but 2/3 of the notes are things that came to me that were triggered by what I was listening to. Mm-hmm. I think that's just me and a speaker, but you get 3 or 4 people sharing something. They say that you get 2 minds together, and it's a greater mind than just 2 individual people. So, John, please share Henry Ford, Thomas Jefferson.
I'll get to. I will get to that. Because, well, I just want to touch on a few points that we both brought up here real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
The increased brain power. When you have more than one mind together, Napoleon Hill refers to it as a supermind. You create a third mind, you have extra brain power, plus you have extra knowledge. I mean, you were just saying, Ringo did his part, George did his part, John did his part, Paul did his part, and they got inspiration from each other as they were moving along. So that gives their experience and their inspiration. It's a mutual encouragement support system, which causes an energy to inspire things to move along. These are all part of why a mastermind works, and it's beautiful. Plus, you get access to networks, you get access to other people that you wouldn't necessarily have access to, and it's a wonderful thing. And what Sid's talking about it for fun, I thought, I wonder what would AI do if I put a random group of historical figures together and how it would talk about how these people would interact. And so I asked AI to put a mastermind group of Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, Theodore Roosevelt, and Henry Ford together. And it came up with 3 pages. And I'm just going to read just a couple of things here real quick. Initial framing would be by Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson, with his eloquent philosophical mind, would likely initiate the discussion by framing the problem in terms of its social impact and ideals. He would emphasize the potential for human upliftment, liberty, and the greater good. He would start something out like, "Gentlemen, we stand at the precept of a new age. This clean energy, whatever it may be, offers not just efficiency, but a path to true independence for every household. So they have his dignity and grace down. Franklin would have the practical inquiry. Benjamin Franklin, ever the pragmatist. Oh, I need to learn big words. An inventor would immediately jump to the how. Indeed, Thomas Jefferson, Thomas. But before we discuss universal illumination, we must understand the mechanics. What are the current limitations of this clean energy? So he would get into the technical aspect of it. It was Henry Ford, with his industrialist vision, would be thinking on a scale from the start. The mechanics are secondary to the process. Then, how can we standardize its production? How can we make it so affordable that every common man, not just the elite, can possess it? We need a system, an assembly line for this. Clean energy to truly transform society. Forget small workshops. Think factories. Efficiency and truly democratic process. You'd be less interested in the intellectual debate and more interested in tangible applications. Roosevelt's bold action and public will. Theodore Roosevelt, the energetic leader, would be focused on the will and message. Gentlemen, the greatest challenge will be rousing the public and overcoming entrenched interest. This isn't just a technical marvel, it's a moral imperative. How do we galvanize a nation? How do we break the monopolies that will surely resist this progress? We need bold action, a public campaign, and perhaps even legislative muscle to clean the path. He would be thinking how to use the bully pulpit for his new cause. So in other words, they can take four random people, you can take four random people, put them together with the same, wanting the same thing, and they all have their different talents. They take their talents and they mesh them and they start inspiring each other. This goes on and talks about how they get along and maybe even some of the conflicts they may have, which I thought was quite interesting, because you're not going to get along. You're not going to agree with everything that's said by other people, but the whole idea of having the mastermind is to hash this out and figure out how to overcome issues and maybe come up with some new ideas for new product. Maybe it's an idea for how to get it out there. One of the things that, I'm going to go back to Ozzy Osbourne. Okay. One of the things that all the bands have all said, because he helped a lot of bands get popular. He helped Metallica. He helped Motley Crue, several bands become, the bands they are today. If it wasn't for Ozzy Osbourne giving them a shot, they probably wouldn't be where they are. And I haven't seen a musician touch so many genres of music in my life. I've seen country singers, I've seen rap singers, I've seen all these different artists come up with tributes to Ozzy Osbourne, which means he had more than just a single touch. Everybody he got with, he was inspiring. He would talk to them. He would encourage them to get together and discuss things. He would help them come up with something new. He was always kind and giving to help them move their careers along. And that's something that a good mastermind leader is going to exude. They're going to come out, they're going to be willing to help. Anybody in a mastermind is going to be willing to listen, because there's going to be times that there's going to be somebody else in there that's going to be leading the conversation, and you have to be a good follower as well as a good leader. Would you not agree with that, Sid?
Yes, I do. Can I go off
Absolutely.
topic for a moment? You gave me an idea.
Uh-oh.
So when I get a new idea, I'm inspired. I always like to share it. And I'm thinking about Congress. And they pass all these laws, and there's always some loopholes. There's
yeah.
always some consequences that they never even considered that was harmful. And I'm just thinking, they need to be using AI to structure these laws and tell it no loopholes. So
You know, that could be something that could happen. I mean, I could see where AI could be used as kind of a mastermind assistant, because you can't do anything alone. You know, if you're capable of doing that, you've got a lot more up here than most everybody else does. It takes other people encouraging you. It takes other people helping you with ideas. It takes, you being open. Another thing with a mastermind, you have to be open. You have to be willing to discuss and willing to accept when you made an error and need to make a correction. And that ultimately is what masterminds do. They're people that come together. They're people that they may be from different genres of business, but they have a like mind, and that like mind is to increase their business and make it more affordable, get it out to more people. So how do we do that? They get together, they talk about it. So if you're wanting to accomplish your goals, one of the things you need to do, whether that goal is to make money, whether that goal is to get into the NFL or become an actor, or any number of things that you feel are out of reach, you need to have a group of like-minded people that you can sit down and talk with. No offense, it usually isn't relatives.
Do you say no relatives?
I said no offense, but it usually is not your relatives that you sit down and do this with, unless they're very much like you. That's why it's like-minded people, because a lot of times relatives, well, I'm going to bring it to the real world, son.
Oh, yes.
This requires an openness. It requires you allowing your mind to accept new things, giving yourself permission to listen, permission to be wrong, and permission to know this is right and to move forward. And yes, it does require permission. One of the things the book talks about is the pursuit of money. Money's shy. You actually have to pursue it. Poverty isn't. Poverty's bold. It'll just come right after you, and it won't care. It'll just run you right over if you let it. But you have to finesse money, and that requires action. That requires a constant pursuit. Just like your goals, it requires a constant pursuit of what you want, and staying focused on that and moving forward on it all the time. A mastermind can take that movement from a crawl to a moon-sized bounce. You could go from not doing anything to making $1 million a year. I mean, isn't that what happened to Bob? So we are getting close to time. So I hope we help clarify a little bit. If not, feel free to ask questions. We're happy to answer those. I just want to thank you for sharing your time with us. And if you wish to learn how to accomplish your goals, please visit our website at snjmentoring.com. Again, that's snjmentoring.com. And we encourage you to fill out the contact request so we can set up a free discovery session. And Sid, I'm going to ask you to kind of take a minute to show people tell them what that kind of looks like so they understand what we're going to do for free, because it'll take probably 30 minutes to an hour. So go ahead and just kind of explain to our audience what a discovery session is.
Do I get 30 minutes here?
No, you don't get 30 minutes.
No, a discovery session is to learn about each other. In particular, I want to learn about you and where you're at and what goals you have. And talk about the things that we do and how we can help you. And there's a word that's out there, which I like, to see if there's a good fit, whether we can work together.
Yeah.
John told me not to say this, but one of the key questions is, are you coachable?
I did tell you not to say that.
But I had one other comment going back as you were finishing up there, to be open. You've got to leave your ego at the door. You got to leave your ego at the door and not get your feelings hurt when you have a great idea and everybody else says it doesn't work.
Right.
Well, I hope they wouldn't say it doesn't work, but they'll say, well, have you looked at it this way, another perspective? So all of a sudden you get 3 or 4 perspectives to solve a problem. But I went back to your mastermind, but we'd love to chat with you. Spend a half hour to an hour talking about who you are and what you want to do in life and what are your goals.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And, I kind of treat every conversation with somebody new as a mastermind, because you never know what inspiration you're going to get. It's just the way it is. You can learn so much by giving yourself permission to just listen to everybody. So thank you, Sid, for that and helping our audience understand it a little bit. Please, everybody, like, share, subscribe. It really does help. And I'd like you to join us next week when we discuss step 10, the transmutation of sexual desire, your fuel to success. And remember, at S&J Mentoring, we show you how to accomplish your dreams. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, John.
Did you know your clothing could help balance your body's pH levels? Our cutting-edge fabric technology naturally promotes optimal pH balance, helping you feel energized, refreshed, and at your best every day. Use promo code PRTalk for more info. Tap the link in the description or contact our experts at 702-445-9488 to learn more.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.